Hey everybody, and welcome to Deep Packet Security. Today we're going to talk about the Cloudflare blog and the recent DDoS attack trends for 2021 quarter 2. As we've seen in most of our DDoS attack trends, the frequency of attacks, the size of attacks, the complexity all seem to be increasing. But I want to bring your attention to a bullet point here that's kind of interesting. I talk about HTTP DDoS attacks targeting government, administration, public sector websites. They increased by nearly 500%, and that is now the second most targeted industry after consumer services, whose DDoS activity increased by 684% quarter over quarter. We come down here, and Cloudflare wants to talk a little bit about application layer DDoS attacks, following up on this interesting point about HTTP, but this graphic doesn't really tell us anything, and we don't really learn anything about what HTTP attacks are here. So what I want to do is ask you a few questions to get your mind working about these attacks and what you're doing and make sure that you're prepared. So first of all, are you logging all of your HTTP events on your web server? And if you are, if you're not, you should start immediately. And if you are, can you detect anomalies based on the number of requests that you're receiving, the number of responses that your web server is making, and really importantly, the types of errors and number of errors that you're seeing in an HTTP attack when it's successful, i.e. when the web server is actually responding with content. You will see different behavior than when it is asking for something that your web server cannot respond to with content, and your web server will respond with an error. Being able to differentiate between the types of errors and how frequently you're seeing them is a really important way to be able to quickly identify that an attack is happening. Also, are you monitoring your rates of traffic from some kind of flow solution? Like that could be Cisco's NetFlow, or it could be another flow solution. I think Juniper has JFlow. There's various off-the-shelf and also custom-built solutions for flow. You don't need to go one for one on flow. That can be pretty resource-intensive. But you just want to make sure that you're sampling at a rate that you can still detect anomalies. And those anomalies, can you identify them, both for inbound and outbound traffic? If you're familiar with HTTP, if you run a web server, you know that the requests that come inbound are going to be smaller in terms of bits, bytes, and packets than the responses that you're returning outbound. When it comes to attacks, if you are answering requests from, say, a GET flood, then that means different things here. Your inbound traffic might not be a source by which you can actually identify the attack. It may look like regular traffic. It may blend in and be too small to actually identify in terms of difference between the bits you're seeing inbound or packets you're seeing inbound and what you normally see. But on the outbound side, you may detect something because, again, in HTTP, you serve up more content in terms of size than you receive in terms of requests. Are you even designed for this? So HTTP is an obsolete protocol, and as such, if you're running a modern web server, you should be moving everything over to encrypted conversations as quickly as possible. Customers should not be landing on your page and doing a lot over HTTP. They should be getting redirected right to your encrypted side, right over to 443, so that you can serve them HTTPS content. If you're doing that properly, that means that you don't have customers doing a lot of back and forth with your web server over port 80, or if you're choosing to be secure by obscurity, some other port that you chose for HTTP, but it's not a great idea. You can therefore take some actions against port 80 traffic to limit, shape it, etc. That will be not very or unlikely to cause customer impact, which is your goal. You want to separate this traffic from customer traffic so that you don't impact your customers while you precisely mitigate your bad guys. And finally, your response checklist. It should look a little different for HTTP. As you can tell, once you see an HTTP anomaly, knowing what to investigate, it's a little different than your volumetric attacks. You want to keep that in mind. Even for your TCP-based attacks like ACK and SYN floods, it's going to look different than that in terms of what you do to triage it, what your mitigation options are, who you should talk to, right? And escalate this. Some of your communication plans will be the same, but for the response, for your engineers, it's going to look a little different, and you should know that. Also, when you're dealing with upstream providers, whether it's your ISP who has a contractual obligation to provide you with DDoS protection, or it's a cloud service that you have hired, like Cloudflare, you have to keep in mind that they're much better at stopping large attacks than they are at stopping HTTP attacks. It is really hard to precisely mitigate HTTP attacks without any customer impact unless you have a very granular view of that network. ISPs are terrible for this job. Cloud providers are okay, but I wouldn't trust them, and I don't trust them in my line of work to mitigate all HTTP attacks without impact. Generally speaking, if I have the bandwidth to take care of that on my side of the house, inside of my edge, I'm going to take care of it there because I can use my scalpel and I can take care of it without impacting any customers. That's it for right now. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out to Deep Packet Security. We can be reached by email at deeppacketsecurity@protonmail.com. You can leave a comment on this blog, and we'd love to get in touch with you and talk more about what we can do to help protect your network from DDoS attacks. Thanks, and have a great day.